Welcome to another episode of Art Heals All Wounds. I'm your host, Pam Uzel. On this show, we meet artists transforming lives with their work. Let me ask you a question. Do you think time travel is possible? There are so many books and movies about time travel, and usually there's some kind of really complex machine with advanced physics that make it possible for someone to travel through time. What I think is that you've probably traveled in time many times with something that isn't a machine at all. Think about this. Have you ever been driving and listening to the radio and suddenly a song comes on that was something you listened to all the time when you were younger? What happens to you then? Do your thoughts and emotions immediately return to that earlier time? And do memories from that time come flooding back to you from the very first opening notes of that favorite song? My guest on this episode of Art Heals All Wounds understands very well this magical power of music. His name is Orlando Williams, and he's been a DJ since the early 80s. He's always had a special connection with music, and from a young age was fascinated by the way it could shape emotions in the listener. He shares with us how, for him, music has been a key to building community through the emotional experiences he creates with music. You're listening to Art Heals All Wounds. You can get more information about this podcast and get in touch with me on the Facebook page, Art Heals All Wounds, and on Twitter and Instagram at Art Heals Podcast. You're listening to Art Heals All Wounds. Listen and let us inspire you. Who listening has seen the television show Soul Train? Remember how all of the dancers would dance two by two through the lines of other dancers? Did anyone besides me used to practice the dance moves they would do if they ever got a chance to dance down the Soul Train? I feel sure that I am not the only one. Well, here's something interesting. There's a world record of the largest Soul Train in the Guinness Book of World Records. In 2011, Berkeley High, the high school in Berkeley, California, set the record with 211 students dancing down the Soul Train. I think the current record of the longest Soul Train is now up to 426 dancers, set in Goodyear, Arizona in 2014. At least that's what it said when I looked it up in the Guinness Book of World Records. My next guest, Orlando Williams, was one of the people behind the record-breaking Soul Train at Berkeley High in 2011. He's been DJing since the mid-'80s and has been involved in numerous music events that happen in Berkeley. I first met him DJing at a fundraiser for my child's elementary school. Listening to him was like a total disconnect. On the one hand, you had parents trying to figure out the cotton candy machine, and on the other, you had one of the best DJs I've ever heard providing the music. I soon found out that Orlando was involved in lots of events in Berkeley. In fact, anytime I went to a street fair or festival and saw Orlando setting up, I would go, phew, this is going to be fun. He's been on my mind during the pandemic with everything being shut down. I'm really happy to have a chance to catch up with him to find out what's coming up next for him and to ask him some questions that I've never had a chance to ask him before. Hi, Orlando. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, my pleasure. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too. Yes, it really is. How did you get started DJing?
Oh, wow. That had to be about 1982.
Wow.
Yeah, about 1982, 81, 82, let's call it. I was introduced to it by my older brothers, and that was a club in Emeryville called Silks. And Silks was at that time in its heyday, like the number one club in the East Bay to go to. And it was a warehouse scenario where you had DJs playing until 4 a.m. Now I was underage, I could never get in. So I would hang outside and just kind of watch the people go in and out and listen to the music. And, it was just really something to see how music would move people. I mean, I was always intrigued by music and its ability to trigger emotions. And that was at an early age, from just going to the movies, and it just seemed, how the certain scenes would come on and the music would start and everybody would start crying. It's just like, oh, or cheering, and the music would just change. And so I was always kind of really, how would I want to say, deep into listening into music. I have a very talented musical family member. Miles Davis is my great uncle, by the way.
I never knew that.
Yeah. And my grandmother's brother. Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So, I've always listened to my mom's music and just kind of being around it. And so I would tag around with my brothers, and they would always come out, walking back home from there and just talk about all the fun they had. And so I was eager to go. Fast forward about a year or so later, I had a friend who I had met. He just moved up from LA, and he was a DJ. And then I realized I had another friend that was a DJ. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm getting a little bit closer. And so I hung out with them. I picked up some skill sets. One of my friends, James Adamos, he had an older brother, Joel, and he was the DJ at the time, and we picked up some skill sets from him and his friend who was from New York. So we were getting a little bit of, I guess I was blessed enough to get a little bit of LA style, a little bit of New York style. Soon after, got my own equipment and then just put into work, and it was all about running up to Telegraph every Saturday, Sunday morning, Leopold's, Tower Records, spending a whole day up there just digging through crates.
Right.
Finding all the good stuff, because Berkeley was pretty special back then because you had like 4 record stores within 3 blocks. So people came, all around from Sacramento to San Jose to shop for vinyl. Then we'd run home and put it on and get to work.
Yes. And for anybody who's listening outside of the Bay Area, if you haven't heard of Telegraph Avenue, it is probably the most well-known street in Berkeley. Would you agree with that, Orlando?
Most definitely. Especially during that time, because, it was, I would say it was, I don't want to say the better part of Berkeley, because, my time span will only cover so much at that age. But just growing up there, you run up there to play pinball, grab some pizza, just hang out on the Ave, as they used to say. Right. It was somewhat of I won't say a drag strip, but people would drive their nice cars by slowly on Sundays. So It was a place to be on the weekend.
Right.
Sure.
And it's where a lot of very famous protests and things happened before that, a decade or two before that.
Oh, yeah.
What kind of music were you looking for?
I'm glad you asked that, because, as we come to find out later, we were really, how can I say, thankful. I can say thankful and lucky, blessed, and all that to be in Berkeley at that time, because there was a good balance of everything in music. Oakland was thriving in funk. Berkeley had this pop hippie appeal to it. Hip hop was being pushed in from New York. House was arriving from Chicago. And so Berkeley, being the melting pot that it was then, you wanted to play a little bit of everything. So we were playing Devo and Kraftwerk with Pat Benatar and Madonna. And I mean, we played it all, which made the event or parties that we were doing just the best, I felt, what I mean? Because everybody had a good time. We just tried to serve everybody that we seen in the crowd. Growing up in Berkeley, it was a melting pot then. So, we just picked up a little bit from everybody and made sure that, when we had our parties, because we definitely gave our share in high school. Actually, those house parties started at my mom's house. She let me have 2. Oh. By the second one, they got they got pretty big fast.
You're a Berkeley native.
Yeah, born and raised. In high school, we started a DJ group, the Mixologist DJs. And that ran probably from 1983 until about 86. I graduated in 85, so it carried on a couple of years after me. In our earlier days, we, over our mentor's house, we would be upstairs. We had a 2-story house. We'd be upstairs with the window open, speakers pointed outside, and his little brother and his breakdance crew would be out on linoleum. And at that time, a young fella, same age as me, though, actually, graduated same year, DJ Fuse, Digital Underground.
Wow.
He was one of the individuals down there. And one day came up, wanted to see what was going on in that room. He took one look and wanted to do his thing. And he got his turntables. We went over there and helped him balance his needles, and the rest was history. He went on to do a lot of production and toured with David Chappelle, and he's in Oakland with a residency now.
Wow.
So yeah, I went to go support him a couple of weeks back. He popped his head out to do a little mixing.
Oh, that's
so,
nice.
Yeah, he's still in the system. For
That's
sure.
very nice. Well, as are you. Before the pandemic, I follow you on social media, and I felt like you were kind of bringing musical life back to Berkeley.
Yeah, I started off on a mission about 10 years back. I had the loss of my mom really kind of set me for a little spin there. And so from that, I needed to find some grounding. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to come back out and I'm going to terrorize. I'm going to have some fun, and that was like my concept. It's like, I'm going to come out here and just rock the world. And it really didn't happen like that. I jumped out, and it was a bit of a struggle to kind of find my footing back into the industry, because it had moved quite a bit. Right. And so out of respect, I kind of took on a different approach. I figured I'd come back to the community, the one that I was born and raised in, and just do some supportive work. To really grow myself back into it the right way, because music is, like I said before, it's an emotional tool. Mm. And, I know how to use it, but, it's a part of people that you have to be a part of as well and around. You just can't be so alienated. And I didn't alienate myself. I was just kind of off the market, off the scene, I guess you can say, for a minute. But I really took a strong interest when I really looked at what was going on in Berkeley at that time. There was like a huge void. And so I went to just look at what events was going on at the time that I wanted to be a part of. So the Berkeley Juneteenth Festival, which I'd always went to, would take my daughters as well. As much as I wanted to DJ, I've never really had the opportunity to, because once they found out, my skill sets with the events, they were like, no, come on in and do this, come on and do that. You don't have time to DJ, get somebody else to do that. And so I earned my stripes. I'm going on 12 years on that board. And that was, just a little part of that back into the community.
You've mentioned this earlier about your emotional connection with music. Is there an art to being a DJ? If you're with a particular crowd, what's going on with you?
Again, I've always had a love for music. So I'll spend probably at the minimum 20 hours a week downloading music, and that takes me through world charts, just listening. And, you got your suggested music, or the ones that they push, or the top 20, 50 or so, but you got to dig a little deeper. You can have a few tricks up your sleeves and the stuff that you do to show, but musically, a lot of people aren't there to stare at the DJ. You really have to think about sometimes where you're at, definitely. The crowd, the age bracket, and if you're good, you can tap into that. You really have to just tap into it. One of those things would be, as I was doing the high school parties, I still have all that, all those number one hits in there and all the things that they love. And so now fast forward, and they're 10 years older, in their 30s. If I want to take them back to that moment, I just go back to that file and I'd be like, oh my God, I've rocked the college crowd for 7 years and I'm far from a college age. You know what I mean? It's because I've had that music and I've studied it. I know it. I just don't play it. There's an kind of an unwritten order in the playing music. And if you tap into that, then you'll have everybody in the room.
What do you mean there's an unwritten order? What does that mean?
It's like, how can I explain it? It's almost like playing them in chronological order. If you're playing through a set and you start off in the 80s and you end up in the mid 90s, for example, is somewhat of a journey for that person listening to that, because they will, kind of just, they'll drift, not even knowingly, into that time with you. And that's when you, as a party girl, are like, oh my God, it's that next song that just takes you there. It's already been building 10 songs and into that. But by the time that 10th song hits you, I got to go dance. That's that moment for that person. Like out of nowhere, it's like, oh, let's go. Because you tapped them.
Right. And when you're at an event, can you read the room?
Oh, you better read the room. That's what you bet. Oh, yeah. When you catch people, you catch them singing a song, a verse of it, tapping their toes, just body language should tell you a lot. I actually had an event called Body Language, and it was really geared on that, on that concept of just observing the room and play to the room, because some DJs will practice and have a 50-song set that they just have to kind of do. They've been in the garage for 2 months or whatever practicing, and they get there and do it, and they're not looking at the crowd. The crowd is not feeling it. It may be a great set, but that crowd is not getting it.
I'm curious about this connection between your work in music, but also your work in the community. Do you feel like there's one that's a stronger pull than the other, or are they just completely so much meshed together?
I would say with me, they're married. They're married because with my music, I bring out the community, and the community comes out for my music, to hear me play. And so, I'm working on a couple of events now with the city of Berkeley that I think should be carried on at least 3 to 4 times, over the spring, summer, of every year, which I'm trying to do with them now. And it's definitely just like, I like to see people come out, and have a good time, without all the hassle and stuff. And so always look for not necessarily the simple route, because throwing events in Berkeley, there's a lot of loopholes you got to hit, and you got to hit them right, but from Juneteenth to Sunday Streets, to the Berkeley High School all-class picnic. The city of Berkeley, sad to say, at a time did not support hip-hop. They would not give you a permit to block off a street to have hip-hop.
Wow.
Yeah, when I got on board the Juneteenth, it was funny because I'm still the youngest on the board. I say that with some pride. I was... stern warnings of no hip hop, and they just thought I was coming in with hip hop. I was like, no, I never said what I was going to do. At that time, if we were going to have anything that resembled rap, we had to submit the lyrics to the police department. We're talking 2007, 8. Wasn't that long ago?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We had managed the event outstanding. There was no faults in how we were doing it. And I wanted to add a little bit more to it because people were saying it seemed to be getting old, and I wanted to bring more youth into it. And so I started that with an artist, Aisha Fukujima.
Oh, yeah.
She's a talented poet, singer. And so she also does a little rap, right? And I figure, and this was, I met her actually at Hip Hop in the Park. And I was like, I'm going to have you come down in a couple of months if you want and do Juneteenth, right? Because I figured it'd be a perfect way to kind of bridge it back in, like spoken word over beats instead of rap. And so, she had a positive message. She had a great show. And I just went for it. I was like, what? If I catch flack for her, I'll catch flack for her. But it's not really rap. She's great. Like, how can they say she had a full band, And so the show went on without a hitch, and the police were not purposely parked by the stage because they always were down on that end. And I'm just thinking, okay, I'm going to hear anything. I didn't hear anything. I was like, what, it worked. And so the next year I had a gospel rapper come in, right? And I started to kind of ease it back into Juneteenth just a little bit. And so at the same time, I'm doing Hip Hop in the Park. And I had an idea of growing hip hop in the park.
Which park are we talking about?
The infamous park, People's Park.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay.
The park in Berkeley, like the most notorious park probably on the West Coast.
Right.
And so, Hip Hop in the Park had started in 96. And I came on board probably about 2011 or so. And after about 4 years into it, I was like, we can grow this event. I had gained the trust of the students. I had bridged the relationship with them in the city. to be a stronger. And then I wanted to block off Haste Street because I wanted to put vendors. It's like, look, if we put vendors here, block off the street, the event can get more money. We can get more artists. We can just kind of grow the event. And they were like, oh my God, that sounds great. Now the park is owned by UC Berkeley.
Right.
Street belongs to the city.
Right.
So I went to go block off the street. The city was like, oh, no. That's when I found out that they didn't support hip hop.
I see.
And I was like, what do you mean? Like, are you kidding me? Like, since when? Like, at that time, the school's, should I say, the official response was it's a little too close to the event. Try next year. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try next year. Next year, we got it approved. We blocked off the street, expanded the event. We had skaters up and down the street, vendor booths. And the growth of the event went from, and I was just looking at this the other day on the Facebook page. First year I got there, we had 900 people saying that we're going. Within 2 years, we had over 10,000 people.
Wow.
Saying that they were going.
Wow. Because
the event grew. And that was, I won't take that credit for it. I'll take some because it was the vision of growing the event, and the event grew. Right. All due to the students as well, accepting me into the group, right. and an older Black man here in Berkeley, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was a great relationship that I still have a lot of friends through that network. So yeah, I attacked the community, the high school, the college, because it needed it. I guess it's a bold statement, but it just wasn't nothing going on in Berkeley. Even talking to, my friends is like, man, what's to do in Berkeley? Everybody's going to Oakland and San Francisco. So right. I wanted to fill the voids.
When my daughter turned 13, your daughter DJ'd her birthday party.
She sure did. Yeah.
And she was amazing. Have you taught all of your kids how to DJ, or?
Great question. I've given them all the opportunity. I was one of those parents. I didn't want to be like, push it on them. Looking back on, I probably could have pushed it a little bit more. But they have went on to throw some of their own parties. So, I'll give them the equipment. Natalie, she's attending Wesleyan. She just returned from her first year, and she's now the chair of her entertainment branch of her sorority. Wow. And so she's going to go back with a better skill set, a little training over the summer, because she's, they already plan on giving all these parties coming back because their whole first year was wiped from them. So, right. So yeah, it's definitely in the blood.
You've created this legacy.
Yeah. My kids will always say, they call it a curse, but it's a good curse because they know all the old school music, because growing up, when they were growing up, I wasn't going to play certain songs while, so I just kept it all old school. Let's play all old school. So they're in the car singing everything that I grew up with, right? Right. Yeah, that's a lesson, parents, play what you grow up to, so your kids are, do the same.
Right, right. I tried, and many of my stuff was rejected.
It happens. I've always had this thing of just about bringing people together. Most of my events are free. I don't really, get into charging people an astronomical amount of money. The event I have coming up with the city, I'll leak it here. It's going to be kind of like a big roller skate party. We're going to block off a street in Berkeley, and we're just going to invite everybody down with roller skates. We're going to have a park as our backdrop, some music. And as the event grows, we'll probably add vendors and stuff like that, maybe a kids zone and stuff like that, just to kind of have, something within town, because there's just not enough going on in Berkeley, I think, to support what we have there in a great community.
Oh, that sounds so fun. Is it slated for this summer?
Oh, yeah. The goal is to do at least 3, and a fourth one, maybe in October, would be some type of Halloween costume, skate, something or another. Berkeley can get kind of crazy with, creativity. Yes. Right? So, yeah, I guess stand by for that Halloween one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, those sound so fun. You said that it was the death of your mother that brought you back to want to get out there. Mm-hmm. Why did you turn to this idea of music, playing music for others during that time? It seems like you were grieving. And how?
Well, yeah. Yeah, that was a big time grieving. I realized at that time how I could, maybe time travel is a bit heavy to use, but I really found myself transported by music, I should say, away from what I was feeling and experiencing at the time. at times when I was, in my moments, I would play music. You know what I mean? And then it would be something that would draw me back to some of the better times. And I guess it just struck a chord with me because, I just got up one day and it's like, I need to go play somewhere. I need to find me a location, like wherever, I don't care, just where. And at the time, there was a location, the Shattuck Down Low. And there was a bar above it called Passan's. And the Down Low had their thing going on strong. Passan's had nothing upstairs, but I would pass by and see a nice little crowd in there. And I went there and had a drink one day, started a conversation with the bartender. It's like, hey, think you let me come in and plug in one day? And he was like, well, school's about to let out. And, the town's going to get kind of slow. So I don't know what you think you can do. I was like, I'll take your slowest day of the week. Just let me have it. And it's like a Sunday. And I was like, I can do a Sunday. Sure. Ain't no problem. And it took only 2 weeks. And it was like one of the funnest and best things I could have done for myself at that moment, because I took my emotions and feelings and put that into those 4-hour sets. You know what I mean? And I just kind of really just, the crowd was there, but it didn't matter for the most part. And then, when I looked up around that third week, I was like, holy moly, I got something here, right? And then, it was, I just had to really ground myself at that time. You know what I mean? Because, things are just going crazy with family and, the material things, all the bad things that could happen when you lose your leader, your family matriarch, you know what I mean? So, and I couldn't let that take me down, tear me down, you know what I mean? And so having music was just like my key. So I was just like, you know what, let me just kind of, take that concept, because music can be healing. We all know that it can be soothing. I see more from just a DJ's perspective, but it is that perspective that's giving me kind of insight on how I want to be able to work with people and bring people together and the events I want to be involved with. You know what I mean? It's not really about the party. It's about the community that you bring together. And so this event that I'm working with the Downtown Berkeley Association with is going to be everything I just said in one event. We're finalizing some of the details now, but I'm hoping the first one should be in July.
This is the roller skating.
Yeah, as we're planning it, is going to be that and a lot more. I mean, there's even talks of because looking at Center Street, if we ran it all the way up to the BART station, we could go ahead and attempt to bring the Guinness World Record back, the longest Soul Train line. It's like when I took the picture the other day, I was like, wait a minute, I think that's the footprint. Like, just kind of snuck up on me. I was like, to be continued, but that's the title I think I'm willing to, take on to bring back, because, we're the first in Berkeley, right, to achieve that.
To hold this record, and it's the longest Soul Train.
The way they word it is the largest Soul Train line, and when we did it, we had 210, and I think now the record is 300 and something. I'm maybe close to 400.
Oh, you can beat that. Totally
beat that, but it's a very long event. You have to stand in line the whole time, and you have to wait until that pair who be at the top comes all the way down before the next one goes.
Wow.
And so we're talking a 6-hour event, almost like a marathon dance in a sense.
Oh my
so,
gosh.
It's not for, like you really have to be in shape. You got to have water, probably some medics on side. People might be cramping, some massage tables along the route. But, it's something that, has been talked about strongly. I think we can do it. We have to do it. We have to attempt,
Yes.
Even if we don't make it, it'll be a great party.
Yes. I think I'll be the person volunteering to hand out water in that one, though. So, Orlando, I have a question for you. It seems like in many ways, it would be a lot easier for you to go into other cities in the Bay Area, such as Oakland, such as San Francisco, and do a lot of the events that you're talking about starting in Berkeley. So why Why do you stick with Berkeley? What does that mean to you to bring music and events to Berkeley?
Oh, that's a pretty deep question. I guess working backwards in that, being from Berkeley, born and raised, has given me that unfound love that you would find for, I guess, someone in the city. I mean, and it's not perfect by far. Berkeley is not the perfect city, but it did provide the perfect opportunity, I think, growing up in a lot of ways for me to understand myself, get to know people from different backgrounds, being in different households that were from different parts of the world. So it was, just that part alone was a great experience. Having kids go through the Berkeley school system, because I moved to Oakland for a little bit and moved back to Berkeley. And so that just kind of made me dig in a little deeper. I was volunteering at the high school before my daughter, my oldest even got there. I was there like 2 years before. Hence, that's when we did the Soul Train line, the Guinness Book of World Records, right? And just kind of then realized, there's a void here. And then, I found myself in this position kind of today of, as I say respectfully, having the pulse of Berkeley and music and understanding the different pockets of people. And, it's kind of come with a natural progression over the past 10 years, but also time before that, growing up in Berkeley. I think Berkeley has always been this rich environment, and we get a lot out of it. And sometimes it kind of seeps away to other cities. You get people like, and I'll just use some recent history of people. Paul Mooney, who just passed, great comedian, went to Berkeley High. But, he was from Oakland. And so Oakland kind of claimed him real quick. And now they're having a Paul Mooney Day. And it's like, oh, okay. Kamala Harris went to school in Berkeley, but she got the Oakland ties. And Oakland's like, oh, Kamala Harris is ours. It's like, we have people in the music industry. G-Eazy and Kehlani went through the Berkeley school system. And then they kind of ended up in Oakland. And now they claim Oakland. It's like, I was like, if I ever make it, Berkeley, we're on the map. So, I always felt like I had to kind of keep, repping my city. I'll just put it like that, like nobody else is doing it. We've had so many people come through here. I don't know if they're afraid of Berkeley or saying Berkeley. Berkeley doesn't sound as, as maybe strong as Oakland does in some ways. And I get that. You know what I mean? Saying you from Berkeley, it's like, you square. Yeah, well, a little bit, you know what I mean? But I'm sharp on all corners, as they say. Oakland is, in other areas of the Bay, as we all know, can be very different, with different communities in how they kind of go about their way of life. And I say that with all due respect, because you find different parties in different climates in each city. You know what I mean? And so, a lot of music that I play in Berkeley wouldn't be so well accepted in Oakland. You know what I mean? And it may be viewed differently. And so as a DJ, you got to know where you setting yourself up to play, because you might get played, you know what I mean, by that crowd, like, we're not, you know what I mean? So you really have to know. So I have a lot of respect for all the DJs in the Bay Area. And Oakland is not that far off my calendar. I could very well be in Oakland in 2 weeks from now. So, yeah. So, which I'm really looking forward to, because it's a great city to play for. It's a great community. And I am a part of that community, even though being from Berkeley, I have a lot of friends, family. When my family first moved to the Bay Area, it was in West Oakland. Yeah. So, yeah, I love my city.
As you should. As you should.
Yeah.
Orlando, thank you so much for being on the show today. If people want to learn more about either what you're up to, where you're playing, or an event that you're connected with in Berkeley, where can they look?
Social media wise, Instagram is DJOACES. That's DJOACES. Facebook. You can find me there. Currently, I'm holding a residency at Spats. And as far as reopening, hopefully under wraps here the next month or so. One of those things coming out of the pandemic, we don't want to rush it. As much as I miss it and coming back, it's one of those things is, let's just take our time with it. It shouldn't be that much of a hurry. Everybody should be out seeing family first anyway, and then we'll party after that. So I'm looking maybe July.
Thank you so much, Orlando. And I can't wait to come out and dance again.
Well, when I fire up that dance floor, I'm going to give you a call.
You're listening to Art Heals All Wounds. Remember to be in touch on my Facebook page, Art Heals All Wounds, and also on Twitter and Instagram at Art Heals Podcast. I'm so grateful to Orlando Williams for joining me on this episode of Art Heals All Wounds. If you want to follow Orlando on social media, he's at DJOACES. That's DJOACES on Instagram and Orlando Williams on Facebook. If you like this episode of Art Heals All Wounds, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you catch all future episodes. Thanks for listening. The music you've heard in this podcast is Yellow Light District and Autowaschenlage Instrumental by Lobo Loco. Beethoven's Piano Sonata No. 15 in D major was performed by Karina Galanian.